In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered there he called seas. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And let them be lights in the dome of the sky, and give light upon the earth." God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. Then God said, "Jesus fucking Christ," as the random event generator created an earthquake, a tidal wave, and a monster attack, all at the same time, causing his city to go bankrupt, at which point he threw his monitor at the wall, screaming in anger. Welcome to RetroVertigo, gaming with less than 17 bits. This is the God Sim. Hi everybody, finally, welcome to RetroVertigo podcast episode 4?
4.
Let's say 4. It's 4.
It's 4. We should start writing it down or something.
Yeah, maybe we could post them on the internet and then keep track that way. I'm John. We have Ben.
Hello.
We have Ed, obviously.
Hello.
And we have Brian.
Finally, we have Brian.
Miraculously. Had a bit of technical errors beforehand, so that actually makes no sense to anyone listening. So, it's been about 6 weeks since our last podcast. What's everyone been doing? What's everyone been playing?
6 weeks and 1 hour, 20 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone been playing any God Sims? That's right, people. Today we'll be talking about God Sims. Right from the very beginning, we had a little bit of a clarification.
Divine intervention?
Yes. On what a God Sim is. Some people wanted to say Greek gods, some people wanted to follow Christianity. So yeah,
some sort of crusade and many people died, but we're here.
It got a bit heated.
Don't worry, it was only the Moors, so it's okay. Okay, we just gotta mention the language warning.
and the racism warning.
I'm not talking about languages and swearing. I'm talking about just the poor language that will come out of our mouths, to do with all the offensive stuff that we talk about. Hailing in 1989, Peter Molyneux, creator of Fable, a game that becomes less and less good as the years work on, was the most pivotal God Sim to ever be created populous. So this is what the basic focal point of the Interwebs RetroVertigo podcast will be about, I guess, and then we'll go on from there. So, did anyone have a chance to play Populous over the last 6 weeks?
I didn't play Populous, but I played the iPad remake of Populous called Tribes or something.
I don't know how they get away with that.
I don't know either. But there's just one guy, and it's on the Populous Wikipedia website. That's how I found it.
Oh. That's how I found XCOM, UFO Enemy Unknown.
Mm-hmm.
On the Wikipedia, it mentioned that there's a clone of that on the iStore, so I downloaded that. But yes, so is it exactly like Populous?
It's just got better graphics. But when I say better graphics, I'm doing inverted commas with my fingers. It's better shitty graphics.
Look, they don't get much better than Populous. How do you do the right click and left click though?
It's all just touch based. I never really played Populous, so I'm probably I played Populous once like 10 years ago. I can't really remember it, and I found it clunky and hard to play.
Yeah,
and I found
So
this
who
one
played it
clunky
back
and hard
in
to
the
play.
I played it on Amiga, Commodore Amiga.
Yeah.
It was
I played it once or twice on the PC as well.
right click to make your land go up, and left click to make your land go down.
And you pretty much just flatten your land and let them build on it.
That's
how I remember it.
You have some little.
Destroy all of your enemies.
You are a god, and then you can raise and lower land. That's your main power, and then you make flat land, and then your followers will build houses and stuff like that. Hence the term God Sim. You are a god, and you're simulating what a god can do.
And if there's one thing a god loves to do, it's raise and lower land.
That's all they do all day.
That's pretty much it.
That's the extent of their powers.
When you get a certain amount of followers, you gain extra powers in that, though, so you can attack the enemy. The idea of every level is to beat the enemy, destroy the enemy.
Yep.
Yeah. I vaguely there was a 2-player mode, and I remember playing that with you, Brian, when we were kids. Surely we didn't play it on the same screen.
Screen looks in.
But on the other hand, surely you weren't playing that over a LAN or something.
Or anything.
On like a 13-inch monitor. I'm like just getting flashes of it now. Split down the middle. One side is red.
Is that
one side is blue.
Is that where I gave you a mouse that wasn't plugged in and said, "Now you play along with me"?
Actually, I think it was where you gave me a 1-button mouse and the game required 2 buttons. Because remember the Amiga had the Mega Drive ports, the 9-pin ports, and you could plug anything into them, controllers, mouses, mice, anything. So I'm pretty sure we used to play Populous 2-player. One is red,
Really?
one is blue.
I don't know about that.
It's a 2-player game, but
It is a 2-player game, but I can't remember playing it 2 players. I don't know.
I also don't.
So the original was 2 players?
Yeah, number 1 was 2 players. I remember, like, clearly, because this is where the discussion came in, where everyone was like, I include, because to my mind, Populous is a God Sim, and God Sims became real-time strategies around the time of Command and Conquer.
Yeah.
Well, we were having that discussion where I said, what's the difference? And someone said, in real-time strategies, you attack each other. You fight and stuff like that, but in Populous, you fight the enemy.
Yeah, that was me, because I always remember God Sims as being, games like SimCity and games where you just build rather than fight. And it's been so long since I played Populous. All I remembered was flattening land and building houses that I actually forgot that you fight someone in the end. So
yeah, in Populous, you don't actively fight the enemy though.
Or build houses for that matter.
Yeah, you don't do anything. You just give them the land to do it, and your followers fight and kill each other.
there's a difference there, I think. I mean, yeah, as a god, you kind of stay one level removed from everything, and you just kind of facilitate it for your people. So I still, in my mind, have that kind of distinction between an RTS and a god sim.
I don't really know any modern God Sims, so did the genre die?
No, they're not. And I think we'll get to them, but I mean, games like, I guess, The Sims is the biggest one of recent years. Slightly different, but
like
it is.
in Sim City, you're the man, not a god.
Yeah, that's
semantics.
True. It's true, but I think the gameplay is very much like a God Sim, like a sandbox type. You build and your people kind of, or you even in SimCity, you don't actually build. You build. All you do is zone, and your people build the roads and your people build the houses, and all you do is like set the zones.
It's actually a fun game.
Yeah, despite the recent release of SimCity, the original SimCities were pretty fun. Or the beginning always ended with Yeah, the game usually begin with everyone doing, or is it Shift FUNDS? And then you get $100,000 and you do it 5 times and there's an earthquake, so you do it like 100,000 times before you start building.
What would God Sims be without cheats? Boring.
Real nice.
Boring, what they'd be.
Well, actually, with Populous, I don't even remember passing a level either.
I don't remember playing a lot of the original Populous, though. I remember playing Populous 2, like, a lot.
Maybe it was Populous 2 that I played with you then.
I did play Populous 1 after I played Populous 2, but I don't know, Populous 1, I think they were pretty similar, just the graphics were a lot better in the sequel.
Pretty much.
Well, it did come out on the Super NES as well. I remember that. It was terrible. Once again, proving that consoles are not made for God Sims. The control pad just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
But after Populous, it's kind of a strange genre actually. After Populous, what happened? What did we get?
The next one that sticks out in my mind is SimCity.
Yeah.
But there may well have been something in between.
No, I think you're pretty safe with SimCity.
I think
SimCity. When was that? Was 80 something? Or?
I think
definitely.
SimCity may have been before Populous even, and it didn't become a God Sim until Sim Earth.
According to this article I'm looking at on the history of God Sims, it was actually after.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. 1989 as well. But I've just found to make this amazing discovery, which I also remember this. I don't know where I would have played this, possibly on an emulator. In 1981, there was this amazing game called Utopia released.
Oh yeah, we would have played that on Amiga as well.
Now that was that was terrible. I don't even remember not liking that. That was
You mean awesome?
No, there was nothing awesome about it.
It had Parkwell's Canon D as the MIDI playing in the background.
The MIDI playing in the background. So basically, it was like a ringtone from 1990 on a phone playing in the background continually. But that was a turn-based game, yeah.
I'm looking at screenshots of it now. It is vaguely familiar, but it looks pretty horrible, I've got to say.
Look, it looks like it's from the Commodore 64. What garbage, seriously. But yeah, according to the Wikipedia, which is where we get all our information, or most of it, SimCity was not a God simulation. Sim Earth was the following year, and Sim Earth was a dismal failure.
I used to play that in year 9 in our computer lab at school. We had not many games to choose from, and 2 of them, in fact, I think the only 2 that we could actually play were Sim Earth and Sim Ant, and they were both, I would say, as bad as each other.
You know why Sim Earth didn't work? Because it was too hard to figure out what the fuck you could do.
Yeah, we kind of jumped in, and with 45 minutes basically up your sleeve at lunchtime, you couldn't really work out what was going on.
I found that about SimCity, man. I remember always like having all these rumors or like being told how to play. Like, you know, it'd tell you you've got too much pollution, and then someone would tell me you've got to put parks.
Did you play the first one?
Yeah. The first one. From the first one, I never really progressed very far. My city would always go bankrupt.
Man, playing SimCity is just a road to bankruptcy. Really. I don't know anyone who can actually play SimCity and run their city like a city without going bankrupt.
I used to play SimCity and probably SimCity 2000 and 3000 for many hours. All 3 of those games were pretty good as far as as far as the game was. And but the problem is, of course, you build up a city, you manage it well, it looks good, and then you hit a point where you're like, the fuck have I been doing for the last 20 hours? Because you get nothing out of it. There's no long-term goal. There's no win. You don't win. Like, you don't go like, I've won. I've built an awesome city. I've won. And that's part of the attraction, is because you can just build and be creative. But at the same time, after you played for a while, there's just this big feeling of you just wasted your life.
It's like real life.
Yeah.
I appreciate sound financial management.
Yeah. Of a city. It doesn't really apply to real life.
And there's only so much naming things after yourself and being it was a narcissistic. That'll only get you so far when you name like Ed Tower and Ed City and Edville and North Edville and that's half the fun of it.
Don't go to South Edville, man. Get bugged there.
You would get things like traffic is congested, so you chuck on more roads. I honestly, I could never really work out SimCity either.
Well, SimCity 3000 actually brought in, underground. You had to not only manage the top of your city with roads and trains and buses and things. You had to go underground and do your underground rail network, and also I think your pipelines. Or they may have had to do that in 2000 as well. I can't remember. But so it got pretty intense and different ways. But I think that was the part of the game that actually detracted, because you don't really care about how your Sims are getting there on, getting to work to some extent. I mean, you want to give them something, but you don't want to spend hours working out what the best possible train system is to get them to work. So it kind of takes away a lot of the fun from the game, I think.
That sounds exactly like the New South Wales government.
Yeah. except in SimCity, you actually build stuff.
Can you put useless bike tracks and stuff like that? And threaten them to take away if no one uses them, so everyone starts using them, realizing they've been here for 5 years.
And then you start awesome transit systems, but you just never build them because the government changes.
Yeah, and never finish them at all. So that's to simulate a bit more of real life with SimCity. What you could do is you could play, and then after 3 years, I jump in. We could organise that kind of thing amongst the RetroVertigo, and we will take votes. You can't vote for yourself.
So how's Ed City going? Oh, it's John City now.
Fortunately, we've gone through a committee and we've changed the name. Thought it was more suitable, more appealing to people moving in. It's now John City.
Honestly, that kind of sounds pretty fucking cool.
LAN games, LAN party.
Is there a multiplayer God Sim that you can do like that? Because that's just all. That's That seems to be, to me, what the inspiration for real-time strategies were, to make God Sim style things, but you have to be able to kill each other.
Yeah.
So everyone can play SimCity.
Does anyone remember calling early RTSs, calling them God Sims?
Yeah, when Command and Conquer came out, I was calling it a God Sim amongst all the dudes that I knew, and they were calling it a real-time strategy. It was Command and Conquer 1, or maybe Red Alert even. All the way up to Red Alert. Like Age of Empires number 1, you were a god. And Age of Empires number 2, you became like the king or whatever. And then it went full circle in Age of Mythology, you're a god.
I always called them Command and Conquer games, because I didn't know that they were God
Doom clones.
And then people started calling them RTSs, so I started calling them RTSs like I always had called them RTSs.
Yeah, exactly. I know I didn't always call them that, but then at one point that's what they were. And then it's like they were always that.
But what about was before then even there was like Warcraft? What was that?
It was an RTS.
Yeah.
Was it called an RTS at the time?
I don't think it was. I agree with you. I think that term came up later, but I don't know if it was necessarily. You said in your group people were calling them God Sims. I hadn't really heard that term applied to an RTS, but we didn't really call an RTS by like a genre. We just called this it's Warcraft. It's similar to even though I would say similar to Populous, it's not at all similar to Populous. We never made that distinction. It's a completely different game, and then eventually someone came up with the RTS term, I guess, and it kind of got taken up.
Do you think they would have gone back and called games like Populous and Utopia RTSs?
Not really, because Populous isn't an RTS. Like RTS, I think you have to have some direct level of control of your troops.
Yeah.
RTS, it has some baggage. It's about resource management. I don't know how much Populous was about resource management.
Populous was only about land management, man. Land management.
That's all it was. It was resource management, in Populous, but not in the same way.
Yes, exactly. Because you did flatten land, you gained more resources, and your
And
powers
you-
grew because of it.
Yeah, you get mana from worshipping
Yeah,
troops or something,
exactly.
and you can cast your earthquakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You like cast earthquakes on enemy castles and things.
mm,
Yeah.
First game to include mana, actually, I think.
mana.
Mana.
I'm just looking at the evolution of SimCity though, because that's like Populous died in the ass. It disappeared after Populous 2.
But I think there was another one afterwards, wasn't there?
Populous the beginning.
I never played that.
But that was like 7 years later. And apparently there's a game coming out soon called Goddess or something that is like God Us. I was just reading about it the other day. It's targeted to the iDevices and PCs. That's the spiritual sequel to Populous.
Okay.
But that's, you're going on like, 15 years later. But Populous, the beginning was 1998, and that was the last of Populous. And then if you look into this God Sim kind of genre, it's SimCity that's kept the genre alive with even the latest release. And you go through those things and the graphics just improve in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said before, the first 3 of those games were all really good. Yeah, they just kind of built on the previous one. And I never played the 4th one, but I heard it just got horrible reviews. They tried to take it in a different direction. No one really liked it. And I think it's been, how long, 8 years since they brought out the most recent one this year.
Yeah.
And that had other issues which kind of killed it.
Well, it's supposed to be a really good game if you can actually get it to work.
Well, apparently it's working now. Like, they've given it enough servers for it actually to be able to hold people, but I think, I don't know if that killed its release though.
Well, it was pretty bad at the time of its release when you just couldn't play. You would download it or come home from the store and it was impossible to play for more than half of the people who bought it. And this is the thing, like, you make, as a computer game company, you would think, all right, we made 100,000 copies, so we better make sure we have a minimum requirement, the servers to support at least the amount of people that we would buy a disc copy, the copies that we made, let alone the downloads, and they didn't. They didn't even do that. Like, it wouldn't even support the amount of discs they released. It's completely ridiculous, that kind of thing. But another God Sim that I can have just remembered was Dungeon Keeper.
Oh yes, Dungeon Keeper.
What's Dungeon Keeper?
You had to protect your. It was like what's a Plants vs Zombie game?
Tower Defense.
Tower Defense. It was kind of like that, where you had to defend your dungeon, and you were like a god, and you had to make guys to. You didn't really actively control your troops all that much, but it was also made by Bullfrog and Peter Molyneux.
I really liked Dungeon Keeper. It was actually really. It was one of the first ones, like, where you take on the role as the bad guy. It was one of those ones where you could, you're really trying to be. Is that every now and then a hero would storm your dungeon, and you'd be setting traps. Like, you would have set up traps and put enemies in place to kill them. But it was like awesome. You could possess your little minions and run around the dungeon that you made.
And there was, I remember, you could also build torture chambers. That was something that was really kind of screwed up.
Yeah.
Was it a PC game? Or
PC
Super
game.
Nintendo?
PC game. And they made a number 2 that was a lot worse.
I never played that.
It was a lot worse. But see, that was kind of a real-time strategy game as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Is it a God Sim as well, though?
Yeah. It's because that's the thing. You, as Ben said, you can take control of your troops. I think it was only one at a time.
Yeah, only one at a time.
We're going back like 16, 17 years here when I played this, right? But, and then what you would do is you would lay defenses like traps, build certain rooms and stuff like that to build better troops and things like that. And then lay your traps, lay your troops in wait, and then a hero would storm the castle. So you had a certain amount of time, and then I think they would come, and then if you held them off, you go to the next level and start it all over again. but you could take control of your units one at a time and move them into certain places, and you actually like controlled them with the keyboard, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, with the arrow buttons.
Yeah,
I found that awesome because you go to all this, you spend like an hour or so making this dungeon, and you're looking from the top-down perspective, and then you go down to this first-person perspective. It was awesome.
it was a really, really fun game actually, and it was multiplayer as well. But that's one that I never played multiplayer.
Yeah, this is in the age of dial-up.
See,
there was lands.
Yeah.
I don't think it was even 28.8.
I know, it's like there's 13.3.
Yeah.
There's like Peter Molyneux and Bullfrog seem to make quite a lot of those kind of games. Maybe that guy has a god complex.
No.
So did anyone here play Syndicate?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was
Hell yeah.
But that was
a great game.
Resource management as well as like a real-time strategy. I think maybe this genre is a little bit too...
Yeah,
it's funny to call that an RTS because, you imagine an RTS game, you're controlling like armies of people. In Syndicate, you're only ever controlling 4 people.
Yeah.
But it's still a great game. I remember like that really kind of blew my mind at the time for what a game could be, because I don't think I'd seen a game that, like that, where you could control 4 people, have them point and shoot, target specific people, achieve missions, that kind of thing. It was a really really good game.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it had like all the resource management, buying all your troops armor and weapons and upgrading their cybernetics. And that was one of those games where you were if you lost a character, it was supposed to be okay because you go out and buy a new one. But if I lost a character, I would start the level again.
But
What's a
that one? The resources and everything, they carried over from level to level. So you'd get your upgrades and then you'd use them for the rest of the game, basically.
Yeah.
You'd upgrade your agents, wouldn't they sort of carry over?
Yeah, but you could
right.
recruit new agents and like upgrade the new agents you recruit and stuff like that. Basically, in that game, you weren't supposed to just stick with the first 4 agents you got. If you lost one, you still just fight to finish the level and then buy a new one after you've exited the level. But
actually, I've been trying to find that game. Sorry, I'm interrupting. I've been trying to find that game to play it again. I never find it.
They were going to be making re-releasing it or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that game would still hold up if you did it right.
As long as it wasn't on console.
I played the PlayStation 1 version. No, don't play that one.
No, these games...
I think they were going to make it into a first-person shooter, weren't they?
That's right, yeah. They were. They did, yeah, that was... They did.
Okay.
They did.
They made a mediocre, middle-of-the-road shooter.
Yeah. I think it's
even real-time strategy and God Sims become Doom clones in the end.
Yeah.
All roads lead to Doom clones.
But there's also one of the later ones is that Black and White series. Has anyone played that? I've never ever touched it. That's a big God Sim now. They released number 3.
I played it. I actually downloaded legally once and played I think the first version.
What was that? Cough legally?
It was. I don't remember. But it didn't work very well because it was not a legitimate copy. So I played it for a couple of hours and I remember it was okay, but I unfortunately didn't get too much about it.
I played Black and White. Well, I played it. I mean, I played it enough to have played it a lot. I didn't finish it or anything. I don't know if you could finish it. It was good, but I think a lot of the God Sims, at least for me, you play them for a bit, and then you get to a point where you just don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah. It's kind of like iPhone games, I think. Like that's why these people progress through the iPhone app so much, because they play one for however many days or weeks or months, and then you just don't care anymore. You just like Godfinger is a sim.
You'll never want to play it ever again.
Yeah, never return. Delete, download new one that's basically the same game, and do the same thing all over again. Yeah, like
Black and White is it's like a God Sim with this gimmick of having a giant animal as your totem. It's like the totem to you, and I always it always seemed like they wanted to make a God Sim, but they were like, but we have to have something that's going to entice people to play and bring in the kids, and that was it. and I didn't like that part of it. And then they'd fight, like the different animals would fight with other animals, and
That's Pokemon.
I think in its time as well, wasn't it really state-of-the-art graphics, or the graphics were really good compared to a lot of the other games at the time? I think that was another draw card.
Yeah.
So that's 2001, when the first one came out. What were graphics like in 2001?
Not that good.
Fuzzy.
They weren't 16-bit. They weren't as good as Populous.
I think I had 512 megs of RAM in my computer at the time.
Wow.
I wish I had 512 megs of RAM in my computer back then.
Yeah, man, look at you, Mr. Moneybags. You must have been running things in medium spec. Your 10 gigabyte hard drive.
So was Black and White a proper RTS?
No, that's you just control the creature or something, and then it's a lot like Populous.
Yeah, right.
From what I can understand, I haven't actually played it. I was never really. I remember when Black and White 3 was coming out recently, and I was like, that sounds pretty cool, but I'm not going to sit there and play that goddamn thing and invest that much time in a Tamagotchi.
If I cast my mind back, I think you had more control over the monster than you did over the people. But you could get them to build places, and you could get them to do things, and they'd run around and scurry around for resources and ththings. But your real control, like your avatar to your people, was your monster.
Yeah.
So I'm reading up about Black and White 2, which is apparently it's a kind of a cross between an RTS and a god sim, and it was the lead designers were Peter Molyneux and Ron Miller, who worked on StarCraft and Warcraft 2 apparently.
Yeah, he did.
So I mean, it's kind of I don't know. I just want to get this point across that the whole idea of God Sim and the RTS was kind of really a blurry distinction, and people who worked on God Sims worked on RTSs, and I think they were before we defined the genre, they were just making games that were super nerdy and about management in some way, and I don't know. There's a point where now we look at them differently, but I think at one stage, God Sims, RTSs, they're all in the same boat.
That's what I think kind of happened. It just more and more became like Command and Conquer and Warcraft, so they became their own genre, and less were like Populous, so that became a nostalgia genre.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the whole genre was just taken over by Command and Conquer clones, so it doesn't really make sense to have a separate genre for games that don't really exist anymore. So.
Well, this is the thing, because even real-time strategies are on their way out. They have been for a few years.
I think when you look at games like The Sims or SimCity, they've got nowadays they're classed under a separate genre, like of simulation.
Yeah.
Ah, totally. Yeah.
And then there's like The Sims when it went online, and then it spawned like the Second Life. Became the same kind of thing, and that genre became MMOs, MMO simulations, and then you have the SimCity, which is just a simulation.
So I think if you look at it, it is like a kind of a logical progression of the genre, and anything that is more God Sim like now is kind of more of a casual genre. I think the idea of just being able to have more control over the things that you're playing with, I think that's more for the gamers, and then all this other stuff where you're just building environments or whatever, that's just for the casual audience.
Okay, but how does The Sims fit into that?
That's for girls.
Yeah, there's games for girls, Ben.
The Sims has a huge appeal,
Sims,
though.
My Little Pony, Barbie games.
Okay, look, I'll admit to it. When The Sims first came out,
Explorer.
when The Sims first came out, I bought it and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I played Sims too.
Was that before your sex change operation?
My kid got The Sims for Christmas. He got his computer and he got The Sims off his auntie, and he enjoys making them fart and die, shit themselves.
Oh wow!
Apparently, they make woohoo or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I stopped playing after I got them to have sex.
My work here
anymore.
is done.
Yeah.
It's like watching porn. You never know what actually happens in the storyline because you're already finished.
Interesting way to make your Sims kill each other and die. You know, that was always a fun part of The Sims when you got sick of it.
You just make them all kill
You
each
can make
other.
them kill each other.
Well, yeah.
Well, no, you make them die. So you could the tricks were to make a room with a fireplace and a big rug in it, and then let the Sim walk in, then delete all the doors, and just wait until the Sim decided they wanted to start a fire. And before long, they'd start a fire, and the rug would catch a light, and then they'd obviously burn to death.
See, I've never played The Sims on account of me not being a homosexual. But like, what is it? So
Wait, how did that happen?
do you like control your house and then put people in it, and they just do stuff relating to?
You build your house. You build your house as you want your house to live. You don't directly. Well, I know you do directly control your Sim, but your Sim has needs, and you have to control that Sim within the context of its needs. So you can make it do stuff, but eventually it'll get the shits if it's not in alignment with its need. So if you want your Sim to talk to someone, but your Sim really wants to take a piss, they're going to get the shits, and eventually they'll piss themselves. So.
Oh wow! Can you reenact it like Two Girls and One Cup on The Sims? Just set the environment up properly.
You're like I'm in a room, leave them for long enough.
Remove their clothing.
Just get them poo and put a cup there. No.
The fun part of the Sim was like it opened up. It was really like a true sandbox game that really opened up your kind of design and creativity. Like, and I know I'm sounding like I've got a vagina, but okay. Back in the day, we built a house which was basically a swimming pool with a house in the middle of the swimming pool, and so the mailman would rock up to the house, jump in the swimming pool, swim up to your front door and deposit the mail. And like you'd have a fire in your house and the fireman would jump in the swimming pool, swim across and like fucking put out the fire. It was just interesting things like that, that made the game
super.
A lot of guys pretended they didn't play The Sims because if they didn't, they wouldn't have released 18 million expansions. And all those expansions sell.
Yeah, because this is what would happen.
PC, man.
This is what would happen. A girl would say, a guy would be playing games, so they'd be playing Call of Duty or, Command and Conquer or whatever, and the girl would say, "Oh, can I play?" And she'd be spastic at it. So then the guy would buy him The Sims, and then the girl would be sick of it after like a week. So the guy would be left to work on her game for her.
Yeah, the guys play the games because girls don't play expansions to games.
Well, my sister could argue that because she has bought like every Sims game and every Sims expansion ever.
Yeah, well, that's your sister.
It's a little bit weird, The Sims. I actually, the only thing I've ever done is watch someone play it because that's actually what happened to me. Like, I played games, so my girlfriend wanted to play games, so we got her The Sims and she played it, and then I had to take over. But I wouldn't take over. And actually, all she did was put everything on, like, you could put them, like, to auto-manage and then press fast forward.
Oh, okay.
So she would just do that, and they'd go to the toilet and go to work and everything by herself. So basically, you're watching, like, a stop motion, one of the, those videos where it has, like, the flower growing? And
yeah,
it's like, yeah, it'd be like that.
They must have brought that feature in, like, Sims 3 or something, because I dreamed of that feature in Sims 1 because that was the annoying part of the game. What I enjoyed about the game was building your house and watching fucked up things happen, like, and we never played the game to actually live the life of the Sims and do things that you could do in real life, like go to work and stuff like that. That doesn't really hold any interest for me. But the interesting thing was building a house and doing fucked up things with your Sims. Like we built this we built this house that was the sexist house because they brought in these doors, like the men and women's bathroom doors. And we're like, okay, so let's use these in the house. And we built like a segregated men's section where the man had this fucking big screen TV and the couch and mini bar. And the woman had like the kitchen and this outdoor dining bit where she ate and like the bedroom. And it's just about doing these fucked up things and watching your Sims try to live their life in these fucked up circumstances. We watched, Sean, we built his house. with his whole family, and we watched like exactly a replica of his house with his whole family, and watched them move in and what fucked up shit they did with each other.
What fucked up shit did they do with each other? Was it really accurate?
Oh, it was completely like, okay, so they all walked in and straight up his nan turned on the CD player and starts fucking dancing, like it's you know,
It's like a 90-year-old.
That's what was fun about The Sims. You build, you be creative, you kind of, you know, you watch how things pan out. But I never understood the whole like grind part of The Sims where you try to build your character up and make them like learn multiple languages or whatever the fuck you do, read books and go to work and build their career. Like you play that for 5 minutes and go, no, fuck this, man. I don't want to play a game about going to work.
They make
I go to work.
They made fun of it in The Office, the American Office, and when Second Life was really big. Because Second Life became big because one of the Sims was online, like the third one or something like that. It was online.
Yeah.
And then in The Office, Dwight hates his life, so he creates Second Life. Second Life Dwight, and he's like, you know, a paper salesman or whatever and then he branches out and becomes a Second Life salesman. So he's selling people in Second Lives. Yeah. Then Jim went in to spy on him, and Jim could fly and could play guitar, which he couldn't do in real life. Yeah. So even he got into it.
Does Second Life still exist?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
People make big dollars on it. Apparently, there's like some fashion designer did actually a clothes launch in Second Life.
I thought it would have been superseded by like World of Warcraft by now, because it's got better graphics.
That's what I would think. Like a game that actually has a purpose rather than.
Well, there's World of Warcraft and stuff is filled with like, you know, 60% 15-year-olds, 30% Koreans, and then the last 10% is like chicks and casual gamers.
Are these accurate statistics?
Absolutely. I'm looking them up right now. I've got a direct link into the asshole bullshit fucking statistics database. But those Sims and stuff, Second Life and stuff like that is like 60% girls. You know, like it's all girls who play it. There's quite a few men who play it, but it's like obviously targeted to girls, like Tetris.
But those men play it because there are lots of girls on there.
Well, absolutely. Like, you know, Tetris is a game that is targeted to women, and Second Life and The Sims and stuff like that are games that are targeted to women. There's nothing, not that there's anything wrong with that.
But none of us here are women.
Except Ed apparently is fucking playing The Sims and SimCity and stuff.
Shut up.
Hey man, who played God Sims? Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ played God Sims.
That was God playing God Sims and Jesus Christ Avatar.
That's a good call.
He was controlling him.
So it's not a God Sim, it's an RTS.
Yeah, exactly.
And, there's been a lot of games, like the Populous, a lot of re-releases of Populous and stuff like that throughout the years. Actually, my kid had Populous on his DS.
No way. They kept bringing it out on other platforms?
Yeah, but none of them were ever any good.
I'm not putting it out there. Populous is a shit game.
Oh my god, you take that back.
Take it out. Hold on, I can disconnect people from this call, can't I?
That's fucking terrible. I was just playing the iPad version.
Look,
oh my god.
Ring Land is a fucking awesome mechanic. It's just possible it's the best mechanic ever.
Isometric perspective. Fuck, I hate that.
In an interview, Peter Molyneux said, "Populous was like it was due to my incompetence as a games programmer. The reason the feature of raising the land was there was because I couldn't get little people to navigate around the coast."
Well, explain Fable then, you fucker.
That was years later. And, you know, look at what he's done to Fable as he progresses. Seriously, that guy, like, you know what he's like to me, Peter Molyneux? He's like Sam Raimi. He makes a really, like, you know, one-off good thing that's like a surprise and it's amazing, and then if you let him keep working on it, it just gets worse and worse, and you end up like a Parker dancing down the street. Seriously, Fables aren't getting any better. Has anyone played From Dust?
No, interested in play. I would like to play it though.
It's based on Populous or something like that.
But I don't want to play it anymore.
But it's made by Ubisoft, so it's just getting better.
I think that's a good reason they didn't call them Populous clones and they went with RTS.
Try to distance themselves from the root.
But that game is on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network, and it's supposed to be it's like based on Populous.
Wait. On the Wikipedia page, in From Dust, the tribe can learn songs from ancient relics. In this case, Repel Water allows the village to survive a tsunami. It doesn't sound that interesting.
It sounds pretty interesting. Pretty fucking awesome.
Check some of the scores here that it got. IGN gave it an 85%. Anything less than a 9 is worth playing. Those what's it called? Game reviewers always complain because no one wants to buy anything that scores less than a 9, and they wonder why. And it's because, like, dude, Jesus, you give some of the worst games 9s, and you give away so many 9s. Right now, it's only worth buying a game if it got 9.5.
Yeah. The average is 9 on IGN.
Yeah, it's true. It used to back when the Mark Bozon and Matt Casamassina were there. They brought the average way down because they never scored anything 9, and 7s were good, and you'd go out and buy 7s, and they'd actually be a good game.
They gave Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword a 10, and that is not a 10 game.
They gave Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time a 10, and that was a 10.
That is a 10.
That game is shit. Ocarina of Time shit. But anyway, it's the godsend.
It's about as good as Populous.
It's not a godsend, but it may as well be.
That's Populous and stuff like that. Also had the that isometric 3D view. It's so advanced for its time.
That helped me so much when I did tech drawing.
It was called isometric, right? I remember it was a really big thing when games used to go on about how I had the isometric view, because basically games only had the side-scrolling 2D view or the top-down 2D view back in those days.
I hated isometric view. All I wanted to do was to walk up, but I can't walk up. I've got to press up, left, up, left, up, left, up, left,
all
right,
I can
left,
say
right,
is
up, right, up, right.
Whose sole purpose was to make things go up and down, staring at a 30-degree angle was probably not the best choice.
You're saying you hate the last Ninja.
Oh my god.
I haven't played it.
Having watched people play The Last Ninja and squat to take a dump while trying to pick up the shuriken, and then move a pixel over, squat to take a dump, move a pixel left, squat to take a dump, I can say that I fucking hate the view.
The Last Ninja, that brings back so many.
You need to get the C64.
I played The Last Ninja.
I play that game several times a year still. It's such a good game.
It was so hard.
So good.
And then if you get to that last guy without 3 lives, you can't pass the game.
Yeah, it just destroys you.
You need to get the C64 app on the iPhone, Ben, and then you can play Last Ninja again.
No, they've removed all the Last Ninjas from it.
Oh, why?
I don't know. It must be
probably
published.
like a rights publisher went bankrupt, or the rights disappeared, or something like that. Maybe they became freeware. You never know. You never know with these things.
So about those.
So speaking of God Sims, has anyone played Spore?
No?
Quite a recent one, 2008. Spore?
Yeah, I remember it being a massive deal before it came out, and then it came out.
Yeah, that was a hype train game. That's what I was gonna get.
Yeah.
And
so there's a lot of hype around it, which caused me to download it, and it was actually not a bad game. I enjoyed it, but it had like 5 different stages, and you basically, the whole concept was you start from a single cell organism and you kind of build and mold your creature into a certain race, and then that race gets big enough to fight other races, and then they become like tribes, and they fight other tribes, and then civilizations, and then eventually they become a space technology and kind of civilization take over space. So it was really like a, billion-year time span type game, which is kind of interesting, but in terms of the execution, it really felt like 5 different games in one. In a good way in some points, but not in a good way in others. In that you're not playing 5 good games, you're playing a couple of good games and some kind of shit games.
Mediocre games, yeah.
Yeah, and the decisions you make early on are kind of you're stuck with. Like I made this race that pretty much were just a stub with an enormous penis, and I was kind of stuck.
Of course.
The whole way through.
Of course.
Isn't that the thing with Spore though? You just made giant penis creatures and see how they evolved.
Pretty much. That's what it was all about. So.
But I think
it was an interesting game.
It's basically like the ultimate God Sim Spore, because you're creating life and then seeing how it evolves really. But the big appeal of it was that you were connected to everybody else's kind of creations in some way. They'd all exist in a giant galaxy, and you could zoom in and look at them or something like that, right? That's
I don't
kind
know
of how I had it pitched.
I played the semi-legal version that's probably on the internet, so I don't know about it.
Yeah. So that was the idea. So people could then look at your, your little world that you'd created, and you'd be able to look at other people's. And I don't know if they interacted with each other in any way, but they were all existed together.
Yeah, so the earlier stages of the game I found quite interesting, where you kind of shape you exert some natural selection pressures on your organism to make it, in the way that you want it to look, and then eventually it becomes just a mediocre, God Sim. So it's entirely too long, but it had some real good ambition. It was an interesting game, and I'm glad that someone went away and kind of devised that game, but I think it had some flaws.
It never really took off though.
It was like, as John said, the hype train that slowly derailed when it came out, and we could all see that happening.
I remember when that game came out, and IGN AU gave it a 9.2, so I knew it was an 8.0 game.
Yeah, right. It was by Will Wright though, yeah, who
made
SimCity, yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So everyone was like waiting to see his latest game as well, and yeah.
Clicking through the links on Wikipedia has brought me to a flash from my past. The greatest and best God Sim ever made actually was Megalomania.
Yes.
I remember that one.
I've never heard of this game.
A 3-word game. It's a 3-word name. Mega -low -mania. Where you would start in 9,500 BC and progress through the ages to the future. And the final age, I remember, was 2001, or the 2000 AD. Yeah, I'm just looking on Wikipedia. 2001 AD, where your offensive weapon was a flying saucer. Now, a child, I came to the realization in the early 1990s, that I was going to be around in 2001 when flying saucers were used by humans. Far and away the coolest thing ever.
So I'm looking at some screenshots of Megalomania, and it looks like a really bad Warcraft game. You have a map that's fucking a few squares. It's literally 6 squares. No, 9 squares the map, and that's about it.
Man,
there's some trees.
That game was mind-blowing, and I think it had speech, like it talked as well, when you complete things.
Which was always awesome in any game. As soon as you heard that one line of like digitized speech, it was like instant success.
As you progress through the ages, the voice would get better. So you would start out early, and it'd be like it'd say like things not very well, and then as you progress through the ages, the voice would get clearer and clearer and speak more properly. It was mind-blowing.
I just remember it saying ergonomically terrific.
Yeah, that's right. And if you early on, it would say ergonomically terrific. And then as you progress to the end, it would say ergonomically terrific.
I remember seeing the game at video shops, like rental shops, and being intimidated by the cover. It was like this bald guy with an eyeball detached from his head staring at you. And
Yeah.
once I rented it, and I don't know, maybe I'm just an idiot, but I started playing it, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I couldn't do anything. Nothing worked. I just died. Or like lost. Oh, and I took it back.
I only played like a dodgy illegal version on the Amiga, and I remember they had a like copyright protection where it could recognize that the game was a pirated game, and then pirates would attack you and you wouldn't be able to progress anymore.
That's just a brilliant Why don't they have anti-piracy methods like that anymore? Instead, they have the always online DRM systems that, yeah. Jeez, why couldn't they have had that in the new SimCity game, pirates attacking you? But
Totally.
I thought it was like I never beat Megalomania, but I remember getting up to the nuclear age, and you could build a nuclear missile as your attacking weapon, and a nuclear deterrent as your defensive weapon.
Yeah, right.
And the nuclear deterrent was just a nuclear missile that would launch if anyone launched a nuke at you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like real life. In 1980. Yeah. Like, it was predicted. It was pretty spot on with the world, you know. But I'm just disappointed with its 2001. Where's my flying saucer? These things could carry 10 men per unit, and apparently are more powerful than a nuclear missile.
Well, they're a flying saucer. Of course they're better than a nuclear missile.
You know, I remember playing like UFO Enemy Unknown though back in the day, or XCOM as the Americans call it, and thinking that one day this is going to be reality.
Yeah, I found out when XCOM, the latest XCOM was coming out, that there was an exact clone on the iPhone, so I bought.
What's it
called? Aliens vs Humans. Man, that game is fucking just as hard as ever. That shit is Nintendo hard. Fucking hell. And it's like, you know, when we had UFO Enemy Unknown, the computer couldn't handle it, so like turns would take like, it's turn-based when you're on the land, and you would like, it would take like literally an hour to get, for the aliens to have their turns and shit like that. But I'm playing that game, and I lasted 3 years. And then I went bankrupt and aliens took over the Earth. I tried again. I lasted 2 years and I went bankrupt and aliens took over the Earth.
Wow.
Bankrupt. It's like SimCity.
Man, it's hardcore. And like, if you spend money on building up your radar things in it, so you can spot the aliens, you can't afford ships. So you can't get to the aliens. And if you spend money on the radar bases and ships, you can't afford men to send to attack the aliens.
Yeah, that's it. You can't do it all in UFO.
It's so, and then if you let ships go, like if you miss aliens, then you don't get money. You get fined instead, because that's the way to save the Earth from an alien invasion. If the people obviously don't have enough money, you fine them.
Yeah. No banding together or anything like that.
Like, dude, we gave you all this money to save the Earth, and some aliens got through, so give us some of that money back. Yeah, I didn't have enough ships. Yeah, right. Well, now you'll have to give a ship back. That game is also a God Sim 3 real-time strategy, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah.
So are we counting games like Age of Empires, Empire Earth, the other one, Age of Mysticism, was it? Or
Mythology. Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Mythology.
In Age of Empires, in the Age of Empires of the first one, you were a god controlling you were a god controlling all your units and stuff like that. And in the second one, they progressed it to like you were a king. It was the Age of Kings.
Right.
Okay.
And you're talking about Age of Empires 2, right?
Yeah. And then Age of Empires 3, the New World or whatever, you were civilization taking over America. And then the other series that they made was Age of Mythology, where you were again a god. But those games, once they hit the Age of Mythology and found out they actually had a good system as opposed to Age of Empires 2, it had a whole rock, scissors, paper kind of thing going on in those games, where you build like archers, infantry to kill cavalry, cavalry to kill archers, and archers to kill infantry.
Mm.
Because in Age of Empires 2, all you did was build cavalry and cavalry archers and siege weapons. But in Age of Empires 3, you just die if you do that. Age of Mythology, you just die if you do that. That's when it became good, and unfortunately it was too little too late. And the Microsoft studio that made that closed down.
Ensemble, yeah?
Yeah, Ensemble. They closed them because there was supposed to be an Age of Empires 4, and then they were supposed to continue the Age of Mythology series as well.
Mm.
And nothing ever eventuated.
I always wondered why my little guys always say hummus.
Hummus?
I was thinking, what if you if you made it in Australia today? It'd be like, burgers! Beer. Burgers!
Manhattan.
Steak.
Got
Golden.
Got to. Oh my god. Why did I just get a link over Skype?
Oh.
Oh,
That's
you
spam?
don't have to talk about that. It was just a random link that I thought I'd post.
Breaking the fourth wall!
I don't wanna see your penis, Ed. I thought it was a virus or something like that.
Is it a video of your vaginoplasty?
No, that was him in South Park though. But don't worry, I'll put that picture up on the wall right now.
I know, I just had the Megalomania screen open and I saw that and went, what the fuck is that?
Does not look like someone is getting poked about to get a proctology exam.
If you say so.
I can't even see the link you guys are on about.
Oh man, let's not go down that path. Be here for an hour and a half.
Describing it in detail.
Everybody, Google Megalomania pictures and try and guess what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Alternatively, just go to the Facebook and have a look at the Megalomania picture.
Try and guess it, then go to Facebook and see if you're right. If you're right, you
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Congratulations.
Ooh, where do I pick up my congratulations?
I'll message me and I'll tell you.
So now this is Peter Molyneux, Populous and Fable fame and Black and White and fame, and Dungeon Keeper apparently. Jesus Christ, that guy gets around, but he kind of just makes the same game over and over and over again, just makes it worse.
Yeah, that's
a lot of
building
building games.
He
These guys just made super nerdy games about management or whatever.
He launched a Kickstarter to raise funds for God Us,
Yeah.
which is the upcoming. He achieved his £450,000 funding that he needed to make God Us. This is going to be the new Populous.
Oh, okay.
Very little is known about it. Just that it reached its Kickstarter, and God knows if that guy is actually making it.
It sounds like a bad investment to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I'm not investing in it.
And one of the complaints about it is actually those game designers are quite rich.
Yeah.
They are, yeah.
And so why did he need to ask?
Because obviously he doesn't want to risk his own money when he can risk other people's money.
Yeah, that's the way of games now, though. Everything's a Kickstarter.
It's
Kickstarter's for everything made now. It's getting beyond a joke.
I actually like the whole Kickstarter thing.
I did kind of support it for a while, but then I realized that every single game that was coming out had a Kickstarter attached to it.
Veronica Mars got kickstarted. The Veronica Mars movie is coming.
I like the idea of Kickstarter, but I've never ever given any money to anything. I like the idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea.
We gave money to IRL Shooter Ben.
Oh, did we?
That was a possible. It was a Kickstarter, but on possible.
Yeah, but it's good giving to something that's like completely independent. And here's a new idea that I've got, and
But
like help me fund it. 'Cause it's all-
you mean a millionaire saying I need money?
Yeah.
Not really believable.
It's like fucking Axl Rose going on Kickstarter and going, "Oh, help me fund my next album." Like, fuck you, man. Do it yourself.
You help me fund my next album, you motherfucker.
Exactly.
friend of mine put money towards the Ouya, and he put $100, and I think he's getting his Ouya pretty soon.
What the fuck is an Ouya?
The Ouya is like an iPhone box that you plug into your TV to play iPhone apps on.
It's a console. It runs on Android.
It's not a fucking
Just
console.
look up Dismal Failure on the internet and you'll see it.
Even better, they plan to release one every year. So it really
As
is.
soon as you said the words like Android console, you didn't have to tell me to Google Dismal Failure.
It's gonna have like Angry Birds on it and shit like that.
Oh, that sounds good because the best time to play Angry Birds is when you're at home in front of your TV.
What else? It's gonna have like really high value games like Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Where
do I sign off?
It's going to have an NES emulator at launch.
You know what also has an NES emulator? Fucking Wii U. And that doesn't just have an NES emulator.
And also a PC. And
I was going to say, and also the internet.
Those are ones that you have to pay for, and you actually get your like value for your money out of Wii U. Whereas with an Ouya, it's buying a $100 box that plugs into your TV, so you can play fucking iPhone games. You can, I'll tell you now, for $60 you can buy an adapter for your iPhone to plug into your TV. I would suggest you do that instead of buying an Ouya.
You know, the Wii U's doing Sega Saturn numbers at the moment.
Oh, that's very exciting. I wonder if there'll be any God Sims.
But I was just wondering if it's going to be the death of the Wii U. Anyway, it's a different podcast, so shut up.
You should have done your Wii when you're Ouya.
Oh my god.
So we've gone slightly off topic.
A little bit. But my whole point with God-us, what a fucking stupid name, okay? First of all, it sounds like goddess, like female god. Fucking
That might be the whole point, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think
No,
it's
because it's populous and God-us.
Ah.
Wait, is that a working title, or is that what he's actually going to call it?
I don't know. I'm not.
It should be God's ass. And you just like an ass. Like,
there's very little about it other than give me money. I, as a millionaire, need money.
That's the thing with these big game designers, like Sid Meier and stuff. Like, they had the time. Like they were in the right place at the right time, and fair enough, they built a good game at the time that was kind of unique. But 20, 30 years on, you can't expect them to come up with an equally fucking defining game in the same genre that they were in 30 years ago. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true. Speaking of Sid Meier, Civilization is another series of.
But it's a turn-based game.
Yeah, but it's a God Sim. See, this is the thing.
Oh,
it's not a real-time strategy. It's
So we're redefining God. Like, does God Sim now sit above RTS and turn-based strategy as well?
what are
We're
you?
redefining the name of God.
What are you? No one's ever done that before. It's about time someone did it.
But I thought I knew what the one true God was.
But is it
blowing
because
my
civilization? You're the god of a civilization or whatever. You're building a civilization, and that game is more like SimCity, but in turn-based.
Yeah, it is.
You build regions and I don't know. This is why we need Craig here because he's the civilization expert.
I played on the Civilization. You build cities, and depending on the version, the 1 and 2 were pretty similar. 1 and 2 had better graphics, and I can't remember the next one I played. I guess 3 or 4. I think it was 4 that you had religions and you had regions. Where the annoying thing in the first couple was if you found a city near your other cities, then some motherfucker's going to found a city right next to your city. It just really annoys the fuck out of you. So later on they made it so your cities have a sphere of influence that no one can found a city within there.
Oh, that's balls.
And if your influence extends because of your awesome culture, you can what's the word I'm thinking of? Well, you can kind of get other cities into your empire.
the word you were thinking was get.
It wasn't get, but I had to find a word quick, otherwise I would just be going, what's the word? It's Absorb is the word I was looking for. You can absorb.
Wait, what's that word I'm looking for? Wow.
Listen, I'm just hitting the bottom of a bottle of wine, so.
Jesus. So we have God simulators, God games, whatever the fuck you want to call them, and we've gone through the early ones like Populous, apparently the first defining one, and then Peter Molyneux went on to make more, and then made more and more and more, and then finally people started copying him and making real-time strategies instead or whatever. But where is the genre really come from, and where does it go? Is it
Go on.
Is it actually going to go anywhere? Is it even continuing, for that matter? Because there ain't nothing like Populous in the world anymore.
StarCraft 2 is pretty much it, right? And StarCraft 2 for the boys, The Sims 3 for the girls.
Yeah, well, StarCraft 2 is not as popular as StarCraft. This is the thing with something that's so popular, like a world-class competition game like Counter-Strike and StarCraft, which, you know, there's still cable channels and stuff like that dedicated to StarCraft 1. They're good for these people that actually religiously play them for a little while, and they're good for people to sample, but then they just collapse again, and the people go back to the original one. You know, there's still active servers for StarCraft 1 that are really heavily populated, more populated than StarCraft 2 servers.
So we're talking about the national sport of Korea here.
Exactly.
But Counter-Strike is the same, you know, people still play Counter-Strike 1 as opposed to whatever the fuck Counter-Strike 0 or something ridiculous.
But I think that that's just the fact that people have a lot invested in a game. If you've been playing like Counter-Strike and whatever game we were just talking about. StarCraft, thank you.
The word you're looking for is get.
They have this. They share a theme in that they had a really genre-dominating game for a many number of years that a number of people kept playing and playing and playing and playing, getting better and better at. And for those people to jump ship requires a lot. And even though StarCraft 2 is a better game than StarCraft 1, even though that Counter-Strike 2 is better than Counter-Strike 1. You know, for people to jump ship, it's a fucking big deal. It's a big enough deal in like a Call of Duty game that comes out every year for people to kind of migrate to the next one. For a game that's been so big for so long, it definitely takes a longer time.
That's very, very, very true. So StarCraft 2 is it, and SimCity is it. And God Us is apparently it. God Us is apparently it. There's annually renewable IPs. Like if we've done 3 podcasts so far, it was Mario, Sonic, and Doom clones. And for all of those, there's basically annually renewable IPs involved. But with the God Sims or real-time strategies or anything like that, there's nothing like that. That's a regular recurring title.
I think SimCity has the ability to be quite a good recurring one every couple of years. But the last 2 attempts, they've really fucked it up, like badly. Because SimCity is so much fun. Like you just jump in, you build a city, you know, you can add whatever functionality from there. But it's a fun game. It's hard to fuck up that game, but they've done it the last couple of times. So.
Besides the server problems with the latest one, there's also been issues with like if you can sort of make your cities based on a theme. Like if you make a tourist-based city, there's bugs where tourists just stop turning up.
Yeah,
people don't really know why.
It's just like real life.
Yeah,
I think that's you can overthink it. You can overthink SimCity, and what they need to bring out is a pure, build a city, have it be successful kind of game. Not they try to bring out like, okay, so in the last game we brought out this. Let's try to bring out some more shit and put it into that game. I think it's a trap a lot of games fall into. Try to outdo their predecessor by bringing in more shit, but the reason that the predecessor was actually good was that it was, to some extent, simple and had fun gameplay. And by bringing in more shit, you actually remove that. So that's my gripe about SimCity.
No, it's very interesting, actually, because, as I said, SimCity seems to be it. That's the last of its kind. It's the last of the Mohicans. There are no other series that come out that are still God Sim.
I think Civilization still comes out. That's still reasonably popular amongst the
It's
nerd
definitely
crowd.
like holding the torch for the rest of the.
Well, this is like as Ed said, Civilization is really different, where it's turn-based. It's battle game kind of thing. It's I guess pure God Sims is what I'm talking about. Populous SimCity. I guess SimCity was actually really the only one
I
ever.
guess they're real PC games, and because PCs have sort of declined, I mean, I think they're having a bit of a resurgence, but over the last, 10 years with the consoles really taking over.
I think it's.
And you're right. So games have moved more onto consoles, and you can see like there was a real-time strategy game made specifically for consoles in Halo Wars. Like the actual control system and everything was made for consoles, specifically like to be played without a mouse. Now I bought Halo Wars. Actually, I believe Ben bought it for me for my birthday.
Did I?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
And it still wasn't good. Like I played it a few times, and this was simply the controls. There's just no way to convert it onto the consoles. And given that consoles are the future of gaming, with things like the Ouya coming out, it's really gonna convert the world to consoles. I think this Ouya thing.
As an aside, I've just clicked on a review of the Ouya, and it says an intriguing mix of promising and problematic.
That's what you want to hear.
It's a pretty bad review.
Where do God Sims real-time strategies go from here? They can't target consoles because there's never been a good version. They can keep coming out on PCs with their online-only systems.
Yeah, once again, I feel the need to defend PCs. Like, there is a market for PC games, and like I've said about SimCity, those 7 people will buy the shit out of those games.
But I think PCs are like the most popular console, right? Like everyone plays their Facebook games and shit.
That's a good point.
On PC, like
and on iPhone, but
I guess so.
Really,
yeah. I'm really surprised though at the moment that there aren't more RTS games. Like, StarCraft 2 is the only one at the moment that I can think of that is popular. Because those games were really big for a long time. And I get the feeling, I mean, there should be more to offer from those games. And I'm surprised that there isn't one. Like Empire Earth was another great game that we haven't talked about.
I've never played that. Is that the one where you can zoom really close in?
You can zoom really. It's like the same Age of Empires view, but you can zoom right in. And the people look shit when you do so, but it's still pretty interesting.
I think the problem with the genre is there's a huge barrier to entry. Like you just can't jump online and play an RTS and know what's going on. You have to be kind of really dedicated to it, and people just get so much better than you.
But do you think that's because I've never actually played well, maybe I have once or twice, but an RTS online. For me, the enjoyable part of the RTS is the single player or playing against the computer or whatever. Definitely, I agree. When you play against the online opponents, they've got the builds down pat. They know, like, I build 2 of these and 1 of these and 1 of these, and that's how I win, And that part of the game has never interested me. It sounds like just like memorizing robotic sequences.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem with RTSs and why maybe people have come to realize that actually, or God Sims in general, they're actually not that good because that's all they are.
I mean, I really like RTSs, but
me too sometimes.
Really, you've got to. There's just not the investment, like the incentive to invest in one of those games just isn't there because not enough people have a PC you want to run them. Like
they're even playing them. The online is ridiculous. As you guys are talking about, playing them online is completely ridiculous. Like I always remember, I thought I was really good at Warcraft 2. And then I went to a LAN with a bunch of guys we knew, and there's just one dude just destroyed like 8 players max. They destroyed 7 other people. Just one guy, because we were all building like one barracks and churning out one orc at a time or whatever. And this is where I learned you could build more than one. And so he would like announce to the world that he was about to attack someone, turn his volume all the way up, and you'd hear from upstairs, "We're ready, master. I'm not ready." And we'd all band together and fight off his group of ogres, and then you'd hear, We're ready. Meanwhile, we're completely fucking dead with nothing left, and then he'd storm through everyone.
I love playing Warcraft 2 co-op. Like me and a mate would play against like 6 computers.
Against the bots? Oh, that's so lame.
Against bots. It was fucking
way
awesome.
too easy.
It was
so
great.
fun.
I used to
It
do that
is
as
the
well.
lamest thing ever.
I'm not competitive enough to want to beat my friends, and I used to do that as well. Like on all those things, get together and play bots and stuff like that, and just slowly increase the difficulty and slowly increase the amount of bots.
Do you do that on FPS as well? Like, oh fuck, man, it's so lame. Like seriously.
Sometimes. Because
I love co-op. I like co-op more. Particularly with RTSs, like I found playing competitively on RTS just so stressful. You got like 20 minutes of just anxiety while you wait for your you spend so much time being anxious that you don't build your shit right, and then you just get swamped, and it's like just horrible.
Yeah, the kind of games that are only fun when you play a bunch of other noobs, like your friends. You play against someone who knows what they're doing, you're like, oh, this is bullshit.
Like, he's got so many men.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do I do?
He's got to
build my
wander
town
up.
centre.
What the fuck? Oh my god, I've only got fucking 20 minutes to win the game. What do I do?
The last time I played StarCraft online, I was playing against this guy. He was the Protoss, and you may not know the ships, but he brought in this one unit that could make all the other Protoss units around invisible. He brought it onto my base, and then I killed it or something, and then all of a sudden 18 Protoss motherships just appeared and wiped me out. And at that point I went, fuck this.
Well, yeah, like I used to play Command and Conquer #1 a lot, and I used to play amongst my friends, and it was really fun. And you couldn't play against the computer. We'd play against each other, and then this guy in a shop said to me, "Oh, I bet you $50 I can beat you in 20 seconds." And I was like, all right, let's give this a go. And if you choose the GDI, the good guys, you start with an APC, so you can transport your troops, and it just takes 20 seconds to get an engineer. Like 10 seconds to get an engineer built, and in Command & Conquer 1, one engineer would overtake a building. So all he did was chuck an engineer into his APC, drove up to my construction yard, and ran the engineer in, and won the game.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, like, that guy must do that every time. Like, every time he plays the game. Well, anyway, so, the all-important questions, I guess. Are God Sims still relevant? Ben?
I think they are relevant to the glasses crowd. Just saying that now is rather broad. They have a big following with nerds, and I say nerds, but I'm one of them. But there's always going to be a niche for them. I think there'll always be a little niche, and there's going to be some, Sid Meier or someone who makes a lot of money out of them. But with PCs getting a bit more popular, there might be more of them. But they're such one of those novelty little sort of games that you can only really get on PCs. You don't really get on consoles.
What about you, Ed? God Sims, real-time strategies, for turn-based strategies, syndicate clones. Still relevant?
I'm biased against RTSs because, like I've said, the competitive part of them really sucks. The turn-based ones, I think, are fun, but they take way too long to play. The sandbox types, like the SimCity and the Sims, I think are going to be around for a while. And, I think they've got a lot more to do. There's definitely more options that they can bring in, and there's more gameplay that they can bring in. SimCity, I think, can be around for a long time still, as long as they get their act together. And the Sims as well. There's that kind of game. I think people naturally want to play that to some extent. You've just got to build the right game.
What about you, Brian?
I think the God Sim, the traditional sense of populace or whatever, is kind of been, as you said, replaced by like the more RTS kind of game. It's kind of an example of like a dead genre, really. Like if you look at something like text adventures being replaced by graphic adventures or something like that, like the whole the whole distancing yourself from the action sort of gameplay is, I think we've left that behind. And I think the only way to kind of enjoy that genre is if you said super casual computer game player. And then if you start looking at the kind of RTS the more about the management. As we've all said, it's for the super hardcore, mathematical nerd who wants to get really good at building, like, the same units in the same way every time and doing that really quickly. So I think that's just, I don't know, both kind of styles of game are a little bit too, they don't really appeal to a broad enough audience, I think. And I don't know, I think games are not, people don't look at games like that as interesting anymore. I think they're getting left behind. I don't know.
I think though, Brian, like, one thing to mention is that, like, The Sims is one of the biggest selling games of all time, and it's still selling crazy amounts of copies. I think it's hard to say that the God Sims, if you include The Sims in the genre of God Sims, it's definitely relevant today.
Well,
and it's hugely relevant. It is probably as relevant or almost as relevant as FPS games.
I'm kind of taking all 3 points on board and thinking that, actually Brian's right. The genre is basically dead, but Eddie's right in the single games kind of thing series that can continue. There's the overall genre of God Sims is basically gone. And even RTSs are on their way out with only one major release in forever. But the series that are really popular can continue. Like, The Sims will keep churning out more and more expansions, more and more versions. SimCity will keep doing the same kind of thing. And maybe even StarCraft will continue. But there'll never be like another Halo Wars. These things come onto the market and they try, and then they just die immediately. As long as the PC is not really the platform of choice.
It's funny. This is our 4th episode, and each episode, except for the FPS one, we've kind of said that this genre is dying. Almost is the future going to be only about realism and moving in the first person? Because we all in our lives move in the first person. What I mean?
Brings up like what do we think God Sims and real-time strategies can do to remain or become relevant? Is it moving into the first person?
God, I hope not.
Ben, what do you think they can do? What could get you to play a real-time strategy or a God Sim?
Sex.
So prostitution.
Yeah.
Sim prostitute?
I reckon they'll have some. They'll what's something that makes people have sex? That will make more people want to play it.
I think you can play those games, dude. You have to just kind of look online.
I mean,
got games like, dude.
No. Like, something like Sims. Like, you can make them have sex in the Sims, but it'll be something that'll be more geared around that. And it'll be a moral outrage and say, oh, this is terrible. It's all, the youth decaying. But I reckon it'll be a Sims type game where the goal is to fuck people.
Ben,
shit meets the Sims.
Shit just got really fucking weird. Ben wants them to make sex games.
It's like Legit Larry meets the Sims. Yeah.
I didn't say I want to play it, but I said I reckon that's what's gonna keep.
Ed, what do you think? Can they? Well, you kind of touched on, but
I don't really like. I don't think The Sims has much more to offer. I think they've really milked that for its worth. I think there is someone can come out with a good God Sim that's like a world building game, like a Sim City or some sort of world building game that is new and revolutionary and is interesting to play. I think there is still scope. Like, unlike some of the other genres we've talked about, there really aren't that many games in this one, that are any good. And I think there is really potential. Like, people, there is something that's interesting about creating something or controlling a large number of people or being a god in this kind of world. And I really think that there is some more ground to be gained. But I don't know what's kind of stopping people. I think maybe it's not just the kind of game that people are into at the moment.
I don't think the incentive is there because, a lot of gaming nowadays is mobile and a lot of gaming is consoles, and neither of those lend themselves very well to that sort of thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, like on there are a lot of popular PC games, like again the CODs that just are a different kind of game. Maybe these games attract an older demographic, one that doesn't want to go in and just kill things, one that wants to kind of create something a bit more. I think there's potential there, but maybe not as much as there was in that time 20 years ago, before graphics were good enough to be 3D, where that kind of game could really kind of take off.
I think it's going to take someone with a very good idea who really wants to make it happen, as opposed to make a whole lot of money out of it. Because I don't think the incentive there is with the money anyway.
What about you, Brian? What would make you want to play a real-time strategy or God Sim?
Or turn-based strategy?
Anything really? I don't know. Yeah, I think the whole idea of all this micromanagement and everything like that is, I don't know, it's just so unappealing to me. It just sounds really boring when you describe it. Like talking about the whole genre for the past hour, or just everything. Every time you mention anything about it, it seems so dull and like, oh man, it just nothing about it seems appealing. But I mean, for the genre to kind of to move forward, I guess. I mean, as you said, gaming now is all about iPhones and consoles. So the idea of a game where it starts out and you put a lot of effort into it, but as time goes on, the more you play it, the less effort you're putting in. But if you're all connected to each other via the iPhone or via the Facebook or something like that, and your civilization is you're leaving it alone, but it's some affecting everybody else's, I think that kind of taking advantage of this connectivity and the iPhone style of play, I think that could do something very interesting for the whole God Sim genre.
Well, I'll tell you, when the iPad was first announced, this is what I think needs to happen with both of these genres actually. When the iPad was first announced, the very first thing I thought about games was how fucking awesome would it be to play real-time strategies on the iPad.
Yeah, totally.
I thought that too, yeah.
I thought that was the best control mechanism for real-time strategies they could ever possibly think of. If the Wii mode is the best first-person shooter, the iPad or the touchscreen is the best real-time strategy. So if they can make a tablet-based real-time strategy game, or even a micromanagement game like SimCity, God Sim, I think it would make, could possibly be really popular. The only problem is they keep churning out the shit. They always.
I don't think games like SimCity, I think people might be interested at first, but I don't really see that game having a lot of lasting power, to be honest. Like, it's like the kind of thing you're excited about because it's a new SimCity, but really, do people want to play this crap like at their PC? Like,
yeah, I agree with you. And one thing I want to say is that the part that I think is interesting about these games is not the micromanagement and is not, that controlling the units and working out what each thing is going to do, but it's the creativity. And in SimCity and The Sims, you can create something, that you've created that is unique. And I think one game that in recent memory that has done that is Minecraft.
I knew you were going to say that.
Because it's a sandbox game. It lets you create, it lets you build. And, and people have like jumped into that and built things and created things, but it's only going to last as long as the novelty lasts, because you're going to very soon find the limits of that and kind of move on. Right. And that's always been the problem with that kind of game. Like you jump in, you love it, you find the limits, and then you're like, well, those are the limits. I'm going to move on now.
Unless they continue to release new updates, so on. Even something simple like Godfinger, which was, one of the early iPhone apps that people...
The funniest name app.
Godfinger! Seriously, so people, do you play Godfinger? And they're like, look at you like, is he coming on to me?
Yeah, it's like, fuck man, it reminds me of the time that Ed played Dungeons and Dragons, where he had some spell that made like a hand, and he just went around tickling everybody's anus with his god finger.
Yeah, because I chose wizard because I thought that would be powerful, but apparently it's not that.
That's like with god finger, that was like you play, and I just smashed through it. And I would explain to the people that I knew who also played it that, actually I think Ben played it as well, and he went really quickly. Because we are so used to games, we were able to progress through it really quickly, and so we just got to the point where it was just, you are logging on every 12 hours to collect your gold or whatever the fuck you do on there, and we hit that limit where there was nothing else, waiting for an update. And then when they released an update, they actually reset everyone's game, and there was no way I was starting from the beginning again. So I was like, yeah, fuck that, Godfinger's over. But then, after a few months after I had already hit the limit, like everybody I knew had then hit the limit, and then they moved on to the new iPhone game. But I really think, seriously, they could make an absolutely brilliant real-time strategy game on the iPad that you could play multiplayer on the internet.
Yeah.
It would be.
It would actually get rid of all this, because you jump in to these competitive players, and it's all about the keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
So you don't have that really. It's all about screen touching and kind of moving, rather than just memorizing a bunch of shortcuts and a bunch of build orders.
That's so true. Like, it levels the playing field.
One of the
bridges
things
the gap between.
I thought would be really good about them was, when you move units in real-time strategies, you click on unit, you click where you want it to go, and it goes. With a touchscreen, you could draw where you want it.
Yeah, you draw a box or whatever.
That would be the greatest and best control mechanism for a real-time strategy ever.
Yeah, totally.
So I guess that's it. Real-time strategies and God Sims all suck. Ed is a woman. And this has been RetroVertigo.
Hey, we should plug our other stuff that we're doing.
Oh yeah, actually, before we go, this is proudly sponsored by Blokes Who Drink Beer and Wine, who also proudly sponsor Armchair Experts, a podcast by Ben and I.
Yay!
You also proudly sponsor what? What do Armchair Experts sponsor?
Armchair Experts sponsor RetroVertigo.
Oh my god!
And so if you're into rugby league, especially the what's it called, Australian Rugby League, you can find Armchair Experts on iTunes.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they are. It's pretty good. And we always have a live performance by Tina Turner every episode. Every episode.
At the beginning of the show.
Ben speaks for her. Seriously.
I do.
So yeah. So long, suckers. And we're off.
Bye bye.
See ya.
So yeah.